so they'll be part of it.
Jeff. All right, how are you? Good. That was quick.
Very good.
I'll stop you right there.
All the way around here. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll say it.
You were saying. Okay, thank you, Tony.
It's just easy when a thing comes in, I just do them up and then you don't have to worry.
So,
There's only one change.
yeah, Jeff, so I told you that.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting of September 2nd, 2014, following Labor Day. Ask Mike Curley to lead us in the pledge. Dolores?
Counselor Hemmon is unable to attend tonight. Counselor Hurley.
Here.
Counselor Kotkin.
Here.
Counselor Manusos may be late. Counselor Martino.
Here.
Counselor Rowell.
Here.
Counselor Roberts.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Barry.
Here.
And Mayor Montanaro.
Here, thank you, Dolores. We have a public hearing on a resolution and wanted to offer any public comment on that hearing item alone. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak on this hearing item this evening? Anyone wishing to speak on that item first? Seeing none, I'll declare that closed. And then we can move to regular public comment. Anyone wishing to speak this evening on any topic? Anyone wishing to speak? Yes. Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. Over the past 6 months, we've seen had various discussions regarding what they call tax liens here in the town of Wethersfield. I believe you also had a tax lien situation where you did some business not too long ago regarding this, having people pay off somebody's liens or taxes. And I sort of see a public notice when this happens in the Hartford Courant, but we also have other towns that do the same thing. And I don't see public notices for them. You know, for instance, Plainville had an auction as well where they grossed X amount of dollars. But you would think that we would be seeing their postings in the Hartford Courant as well, alongside of ours. And I know East Hartford does it, and other towns do it. And I just wonder why we're the only ones showing up in the paper. I think it's good to let people know what's happening, because people don't normally come down here and look on the wall. But the fact is why aren't these other towns doing it so we could see what they're up to as well and what their actions are? Also, when I know you had one auction already, and you have another one coming up, I think first part of September. I would hope, first of all, I would hope that you would be posting that information on your website. I mean, the properties that were up for auction, what they sold for, who the buyers were, and let everybody see. Because it'd be interesting to see who the buyers actually are. And of course, follow up with 6 months later, the homeowner who lost it, who owed the tax, either paid or didn't pay, and who the new owner is, or the old owner continues on. I think it would set a precedent to show that we have transparency. Not that we have very much transparency in this town, but the fact is to see it. And those who fall behind on their payments might look upon that as, gee, they're advertising it, people can look at it and see it constantly. We can see what the outcomes were, and we have a little more knowledge of how this whole thing really works. So my suggestion is, can we do something about that? I think it would be good. Also, I noticed that, reading in the paper with the CL&P increases that they're asking for, and I'm glad to see that people were out in arms regarding those increases that are loaded with taxes. And no matter how they go up, that tax issue continues to be going up. Pay your electric bill, pay your telephone bill, pay your, all these television bill, cable. All kinds of taxes on there. I continue to get phone calls at 6 o'clock from the cable company and from other people wanting me to change over. I have taken the position, I'm very nice to them, but I tell them flat out, don't call me anymore. I'm fed up with those people. At supper time, at any time, I don't want to hear from them. And I went on to explain how they are one of our problems with taxation. I don't see their companies out in front talking about high taxes on their customers and that the state and the town should be reducing their spending. And I went on and really reamed a number of these people out. I'm going to continue because I think it's in my best interest to let them know, don't call me anymore. I don't want to hear from you. On another note, we're reading more about these things called tax invasion, tax inversions. Tax inversions, and the latest one that I saw is where BK, Burger King, is going to buy out Tim Horton up in Canada, and they're moving their major offices up there, and they're going to avoid paying a lot of taxes to the federal and the state and whoever else they can get away without paying. There's many companies, and we've heard this years and years ago, but it wasn't connected with the word tax inversion. It was just they're offshore. Now they're so obvious, and they're not paying taxes. The feds are now looking at quite a decrease in their revenues because of this. Companies are waiting to see what new tax laws are going to pop up to favor them or disfavor them, and then they're going to make decisions about are they going to become another offshore kind of a company. As these things happen, and the thing is, you folks are part of the problem. By your higher taxes, you're chasing these companies out. And as you chase them out, the tax burden falls back on the rest of us, just normal people. And I will be talking about that as time goes on. And I think you folks should be standing firm about holding the line on taxes, something you haven't done. It would be a whole new scene for you people to do that. But you mortgage us, you tax, you borrow, and you spend like there isn't any tomorrow. And we're the ones who get hammered. This state, as I talked last time, they only had 2,400 new net jobs in July. And out of that, 2,200 were down on the Gold Coast, down in Fairfield County, and all the other 200 were net was up here, and from Litchfield to New London. I know, yeah. But the fact is, even employers aren't hiring as we thought they were. And we're going to see tougher and tougher times. So I hope that I'll be back and we'll continue this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anyone else wishing to speak this evening? Public comment, Mr. Seekes?
Lee Seekis, 117 Wells Road. I just have a couple of questions. In the past, I can remember we used to have Peter Gillespie always give an economic report, often in the beginning of the meetings. And I'm thinking back to yesteryear when we had a South State Highway Improvement Committee, which was, no offense, a joke and a waste of money. I can remember a few years back you had some company which cost tens and tens of thousands of dollars talking about what could be done at the property at 1000 South Highway. Well, both 1000 South Highway and the fund zone have been vacant for well over 10 years. Not that any progress has been made, but when a new business is opening in town, it's often mentioned. But every so often, I think the people in town should have a status update on what has possibly happened or might have happened at those addresses, because those are big vacancies that people often complain about. We're talking about the Session Highway being, years ago, supposed to be a destination like Quincy Market, which was a joke even back then. But I'd just like to hear an update every so often how things are going with this, bringing back businesses and taxes to help our town and properties, like I said, the fund zone and 1,000 Session Highway. That's basically it for tonight. Welcome back after Labor Day.
Thank you, Lee. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to council reports. Council reports? Jeff?
Okay. Excuse me. We had a pretty lengthy Budget and Finance Committee meeting last week, and we're going to be talking a bit about the year-end budget transfers today. But I guess one of the bottom lines is last year the town did well, I think in part due to the tax liens and strong collection record of the tax collector's office. Revenues came in more than $1 million above budget, and expenditures came in about $660,000 below budget. So we're going to be talking a little bit about transfers later at that meeting, but we went through that at length at the meeting. Another piece that we discussed was we've talked in the insurance committee in the past about the possibility of having an audit of medical claims. Town pays out about $9 million a year for active employees, retired employees and their families. And we've never, as far as we know, audited the Anthem or the predecessor Blue Cross to see whether those claims were being paid correctly. So the committee talked about inquiring of the insurance committee as to whether they would recommend that we go forth with some sort of claim audit. We also, a couple of other items that came up, we talked about salaries for the registrars, and we're going to be taking a look at registrars in the area to see how our registrars fare salary-wise. A few years ago, the issue came up, and what we used to have 2 registrars, 2 deputy registrars, 2 assistant registrars. And we ended up basically merging those 6 positions into 4, and there were some improvements in salaries, but we want to take a look at what's going on elsewhere in the region to see whether the salaries that we're paying are commensurate with their peers in the region. So we'll probably hear back sometime, I would say in a month or so on that issue. The town manager is going to look at that as well as the registrars. And the other thing that came up, we had an inquiry from a retired employee as to why we hadn't had any cost of living increases for the retired employees. We haven't had one since 1997. And the pension plans for all but the police officers do not call for cost of living adjustments, but we got a request that we look at it. So the Budget Committee is going to be hosting, I guess, a public meeting on that topic, probably sometime in the second half of October. The last item that we discussed during the committee meeting was debt issuance for the high school renovation project. And we've had the benefit since we've begun work on the high school of actually interest rates going down. And I think in the budget for this year, we had anticipated that we would be issuing debt at about 3.5%. And when we took a look at when we issue a range of maturities from say 2 years up to 20 years. But when you take a look at what the average would be currently, rather than 3.5%, it's probably in the mid to high twos for the type of debt we would issue, which is great news for the town for not only, say, the budget this year, but longer term, because we're issuing debt up to 20 years. So that's good. It means basically that if rates hold as we're issuing the debt, that the town's responsible for, the cost of the project over the long term will be lower and could be quite a bit lower than what we had originally anticipated. Not that the town's contribution of $45 million would be any less, but the carrying cost on it would be less. And while we were discussing it, actually, we one of the things that came up that was that when you go out to issue debt, public debt, you get a credit rating, and little did we know, but back in March, the town of Wethersfield's credit rating was raised from AA to AA+, which is the second highest rating there is, below AAA. And I just want to, I got a copy of the report, and I just want to read a piece of it, if you'll bear with me, because it's good news for the town. It says, and this is the upgrade in March, it says, the rating reflects our assessment of the town's very strong local economy, liquidity, and debt and contingent liabilities profile, and its strong budgetary flexibility, performance, and management conditions, said S&P credit analyst Victor Medeiros. The outlook reflects our expectation that Wethersfield will maintain its strong flexibility and performance through a conservative budgeting approach and strong management conditions. The town's location, access to the Hartford metropolitan area, as well as its very strong debt profile, affords additional stability to the rating. Although the potential for a downward rating action is limited, consistent and strong financial performance leading to very strong budgetary flexibility may lead to a higher rating over the outlook's 2-year period. And remember, we're the second highest there is right now, so if we went still higher, we'd be at the highest possible rating of AAA. So I think this really underscores the work that the past several councils have done to put the town on a strong financial footing, and it will clearly benefit the town over the long term. So very good news for the town and its taxpayers.
Thank you, Jeff. Nice summary on the other topic areas as well. Appreciate your effort. Other council reports?
I did attend the building committee meeting last Monday, and really the work was done talking about getting the school ready, the high school ready for the first day of school. Obviously, the work that needed to be done was completed in time to have the school open. Much work remains to be done, but essentially a lot has, significant amount of work was done over the summer and will be done this fall to ensure that the new additions are ready in December. Just following up on something that was mentioned at the last council meeting, the Catone Arch, the committee confirmed that that was going to be used. The only thing that needed to be done was certainly the architect wanted to ensure aesthetically and from a safety and a structural standpoint that the arch was designed in a manner that could fit the new opening. You'll recall the new opening is a little wider, actually significantly wider than the old opening. But that's going to get done. It's going to get done right, and I just wanted to follow up. I know some folks on the council had questions about that, so that's been done. Again, obviously, today was a big day with the school opening, and I think things went relatively smoothly, at least according to my own reports from folks in my household. So, so I think things went well.
Thank you, Steve. Any other council reports? Council comments? Mike?
I have a couple. I know tomorrow night they said there was a tour of the high school. I won't be around, I don't know. There wasn't really a note sent out to say, are people available? I'm hoping there's another tour shortly.
We can make arrangements for that.
And then the other thing was, there was 4 churches that volunteered down at Mill Woods this past weekend. On Saturday, they were the First Church, Wethersfield Evangelica Free Church, New Life Christian Fellowship Church, and Centerpoint Community Church. They were down there, they removed brush, they painted buildings and benches and signs. They went down there before to kind of scope out the area, and they were gonna paint the garage door at the nature center, but they found out it was in too bad a condition to paint. So they had one donated, and they put it in down there. And the place, I went down the next day. They hadn't cleaned the brush up, but I'm just assuming the town, you know, all the stuff that was taken down, but the place looked really well. Mike Rell, myself, Jeff, and Kathy Babley were down there talking to them before they started.
Thank you, Mike. Other comments? Town manager's report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the podium this evening is we tweaked the transfer list. So this one that's loose is what we want to work off this evening. We made an adjustment, which I'll describe when we get to that point in the agenda. We also have an additional agenda item that we'd like you to add, 3B, which is, as we discussed with Board of Ed during the budget process, they anticipated some unexpended funds and would like to use that to reduce some capital improvements at Hamner, replacing the burners. So this additional agenda item allows them to transfer to the CNEF Reserve Fund, which was created for them a couple years ago, and use those dollars for those kind of capital items. So those two things are on the podium this evening for you. I also, Peter Gillespie is here this evening to present his report, economic development report. So Lee, good timing.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
How are you, Peter?
Good evening. Thanks. Great to be here. Mr. Mayor, or Deputy Mayor, Town Manager, and Councilors. I guess I'm back by popular demand, maybe?
Absolutely, Peter.
Or just good timing, or a combination of all that. In your packet, you should have received my report for August 2014. It's been a couple of months, I think, since I've actually been here, so it's high time that I presented this report to you. I'll just go through some of the highlights, but certainly if you have questions about things I skip over, please let me know. The Correct Discovery Academy up on Cumberland Avenue is making great progress. They were a little bit behind schedule. We had a little conflict with some of the neighbors and some of the hours of operation, noise and lights and things like that. So Planning and Zoning Commission had to get involved, and I think they dealt with that in a very commonsensical way, which will allow that project to remain on schedule. So just to keep you in the loop on that. The Chips Restaurant, if you've been by the Goffbrook Shops, is making great progress just in the last month or so. They indicated to me that they're anticipating an opening in mid-October. They're already hiring folks, and they'll be doing that training over the next couple of weeks as the building progresses. If you've been down to Comstock Ferry recently, they're also making significant improvements down there. Their parking lot, phase 1, is complete. We're also working with them. They're hoping to take advantage of the state DECD express loan/grant program. They're talking about changing out their heating system and also finishing the parking lot, the brick paver system in the back. So hopefully they can take advantage of that state program, which will allow them to do some of the things that they've been talking about for a couple of years. In the space below the flower box, flower shop, we've got a new restaurant that is probably going to open within the next little while, if it hasn't already opened over this past weekend. But it's a restaurant called Ichi. It's a sushi and hibachi steakhouse. So that's going to open up shortly at 580 Celestine Highway. If you've been down Knott Street recently, AA Veterinary Clinic is doing some work. The American Legion, you may have heard, recently sold to its primary tenant, which is Griffith's Academy, the Dance Academy. So you may have seen some work going on there. The good part of that is that the Griffiths Academy will be able to stay in town and expand a little bit, and also the property will now come back on the tax roll. So that's also a positive aspect of that transaction. The Planning and Zoning Commission just approved plans for a Planet Fitness franchise to go into the Goffbrook Shops. So that's good news. However, the bad news of that is Office Depot will be closing. Office Depot and Staples combined with, I think, 2 years ago or so. And one of the side effects of that is they've closed numerous locations, not only in Connecticut, but across the country. So the owner of Gulfbrook Shops is working on that as a contingency plan. But plans have been approved by our Planning and Zoning Commission. A couple of small businesses have opened up. A dog grooming business called Pretty Pups and Mutts up on the Berlin Turnpike. A small karate studio at 500A Salistine Highway. A security consulting firm called NSafe at 1233 Salistine Highway. We've also approved plans for a children's gymnasium and I guess they call it a children's gym. It's going to go into the vacant space where Wooden Toy used to be. Wooden Toy's has moved over one space, so I think it's a nice match for Wooden Toy, and both businesses will benefit. It's a franchise called Romp and Roll, and that'll be opening up shortly at 1267 Salistine Highway. A couple of consulting firms have moved in, AON Consulting at Great Meadow and Senior Link Consulting also at 100 Great Meadow. You may have also heard Trinity Episcopal Church has sold or is actually about to sell, hopefully, the rectory building next to the church. It's a historic building built in 1760, 62, or thereabouts. It's about 4,000 square feet. It's located in the Village Business Commercial Zone, so there's a potential for a business to go in there. So we're working with them on that as well. We've talked several times about the bus shelter program, so I'll skip over that. We're pleased to announce that we now have a new zoning and property maintenance officer. If you haven't met her, her name is Monica Holloway, doing a great job. She's hit the ground running and has already, we've already seen the benefits of that position being filled. So if you haven't met her, she's got a desk in the building department. The EDIC continues to do their various programs. Over the last couple of months, we've given out 4 facade grants loans, 20-30 Beaver Road, 326 Celestine Highway, 279, 287 Main Street, and then also 121 Main Street. So all in total, that's about close to $100,000 in facade program funding that we've given out to the business community within the last couple of months. We've talked about the STEEP grant. There was a question earlier about 1,000 Celestine Highway. As you counselors know, we applied for some state financial assistance to try and act as a catalyst for that project. So we were fortunate to receive about $200,000, which will be used to assist with the demolition of that building and the redevelopment of the site. At the present time, the town attorney is drafting the development agreement language so that there are some performance measures included in that agreement. The design of that agreement is such that it will be a reimbursement type of program, so the developer and or the property owner will have to perform first before he gets any funding from that program. So we're working right now on the details of that. So I would think in the next couple of weeks we'll have some of that ironed out for more public discussion. In terms of the Tourism Commission, they're continuing to do their various programs. One of the recent things they focused on is the distribution of a series of seasonal promotional rack cards. It's a more affordable and inexpensive card that we're distributing to hotels, motels, restaurants throughout Connecticut. We're happy to report that since August of last year, we've distributed 40,000 of those throughout the state of Connecticut. So we're making some, we're getting the word out on historic Wethersfield. And then lastly, and I thank some of you who did attend, in July we had a public information session on the status of the Wethersfield Heritage Walk project. So it was moderately attended, but the purpose of that was to provide some status on the panels, the design, some of the subject matter that we're going to cover in that program. We had originally intended on completing that this year with the intent of getting the signs in before the snow flies. The committee felt, based on the progress we're making, we wanted to push that over to the spring. So we're planning on finishing the project up in May of next year. The primary idea behind that is during the Heritage Weekend that is held every spring. There'll be a lot of visitors to town, so we want to piggyback on that weekend and unveil the panels at that point in time. I think the date that we've actually targeted is May 23rd. So, but we're making great progress on that, and I think that when you see the final product, you'll be very pleased. It will tell a great deal about the history of this community in a very attractive and comprehensive way. So I think that covers. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about any of those or other things that might be going on in town.
Thank you, Peter. Counselor Hurley?
Could you talk about the Wethersfield Diner and if you're reaching out to them at all?
Yeah, one other thing. Wethersfield Diner has closed a couple weeks ago. They've been having some issues with the landlord, so I think the landlord finally had to pull the trigger, and they have closed. There are no specific plans for the space right now. I've talked to several people about it. We've talked about different things, but right now there are no immediate plans for the reuse of the building. The building is owned by the individual who also owns the mobile station next door.
Yep. And then just one other thing, kind of a comment. I talked to the Mary Beth Griffith, went down at the American Legion Hall. She said they're going to let the American Legion also stay
Yes.
downstairs in the building, so that's.
Yeah, I think
good
it's
for
a
them.
win-win for everybody involved there.
Jerry?
Yeah, last year I went to the Big E, which is coming up, and I went on Connecticut Day, and lots of towns had a lot of information available, and the only thing that was there from Wethersfield was a brochure from Webb Dean Stevens. So if we can make sure that there's some, our rack card or whatever is there.
Sure.
Because there were thousands of people that day, and really not a lot about Wethersfield.
Couple things. Peter, when the rectory gets sold, does that, like you had mentioned earlier with Griffith Academy, does that mean it comes back on the tax rolls, or is it on the tax rolls already?
I don't think it is on the tax, excuse me, I don't think it is on the tax rolls. Right now, I think it's owned by the church, so with their status, it is not on the tax rolls. So if it does sell to a for-profit private individual, it will certainly change status.
Okay. And one other item, the yoga studio.
Yes.
It sounds like somebody's going in there. Does that mean the yoga studio's leaving, or are they moving, or?
Moving, yes. She will be moving. We've been working with her, trying to find a home, and it seems to change from day to day based on her negotiations with different people.
Okay, but the hope is to stay, the desire is to stay in business.
Yeah, we're trying to keep her. She's certainly going to stay in business. We're really trying to get a spot for her here in town. She unfortunately has looked in other towns because of the limited space available for her specific needs here in town, but she may have found something, so cross our fingers.
Okay, thank you.
Tony?
Peter, is there any activity on the convalescent home on Jordan Lane?
There has been interest. I wouldn't say activity or specific proposals, but I have talked to a couple people, and we're working closely. They have retained a commercial real estate broker, which they had not done for a long time. So both of those have been positive. I think the folks they've hired are very aggressive and have been out actively marketing the property. So I'm hopeful that something will come out of that soon. But there has been interest.
Peter, thank you for your presentation.
Certainly.
Appreciate the updates.
Thank you.
It was helpful. Dolores, anything?
I did have a couple of things. That we have received notices for people who have achieved the status that will be on the November ballot. Counselor Hurley will be running for state rep in section District 28, and he has received his letter of approval. And State Senate, District 1, we have Alyssa Peterson, who's also made the quota of signatures. We have, for governor's race, we have Joe Visconti, who also achieved, receiving 7,500 voters who've signed their signatures. And the one that we have that it was rejected was Jonathan Pelto from the Education and Democracy Party. He failed to receive the required number of qualified signatures by 3,000 some odd. So those are the new people that will be on the ballot.
Thanks, Dolores. Counselor Cochran?
Dolores, I think then the discussion about Jonathan Palto not getting the number of names, it sounded like they had a lot of mix-ups in the signatures, and there were people who had signed this petition from Wethersfield, but they were submitted in West Hartford. Does any of that get back to you, if it's not submitted to you?
Sometimes they will send it to us, but it has to come from the state, the Secretary of State. We have, everything we had from him came to Wethersfield directly. We didn't have any of that we couldn't process.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dolores. Can I entertain a motion to add the item 3B into the agenda before we proceed?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any question? Dialogue? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Thank you. We're going to move on to council action, acceptance of resignations from boards and commissions. I do not think we have any. And I believe we do have appointments. Deputy Mayor.
Move to appoint to the Board of Building Appeals, Bezia Della Ripa as an alternate, 37 Robbinswood Drive, from 9/2/2014 to 6/30/2015. To Flood and Erosion Control, Bezia Della Ripa, 37 Robbinswood, 9/2/2014 to 6/30/2016. To Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission, James Culpa, 239 Crest Street, from 9/2/2014 to 6/30/2017. To Zoning Board of Appeals, Bezia Della Ripa, 37 Robbinswood Drive, from 8/8/2014 to 6/30/2015. And finally, to the Youth Advisory Board, Maria Alfonso, 256 Brimfield Road, from 9/2/2014 to 6/30/2017. Colleen Keene, 99 Wells Road, 9/2/2014 to 6/30/2017. Mike Scavetta, 51 Wilmont Street, from 9/2/2014 to 6/30/2017. And finally, to Ken Lesser, 8 Hawthorne Way, from 9/2/2014 to 6/30/2017.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, we are moving on to a resolution authorizing the town manager to file an application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development for a $450,000 commercial facade improvement program grant. Do we have a motion?
Motion authorizing the town manager to file an application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development for a $450,000 commercial facade improvement program grant.
Second.
Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Peter Gillespie is here this evening to answer any additional questions, but this is the grant that we received, the STEEP grant, which is $250,000 for facade loan and $200,000 for the redevelopment money for the 1000 Celestine Highway. It's titled Facade Improvement Program, but it is a mixture of the two projects.
Peter, any questions or thoughts on that? We've already won the grant, but this is allowing Jeff to authorize and sign the agreements with the state?
I think if you look at the paperwork, as Jeff indicated, the important notation to make is this is for both of those projects, not all for the facade program. And there's a cover letter in there which explains that, and if you look closely at the budget, it itemizes it a little bit differently as well. So I think there was a concern initially that it didn't cover both, but we've been assured that it will cover both projects. Both projects that we applied for. We went through the prioritization project last year to identify the 3 projects, and this was number 1, so I fully support.
Peter, we've had the facade improvement funds have rotated through for several years, and if I'm not mistaken, and I don't need the exact number, but just for purposes of that this is on the table again, of course, for approval, which we've gotten, I believe we had somewhere between 3 and 4 to 1 in terms of private funds coming toward the facade. Is that relatively accurate?
It's actually probably, I was looking at the 4 projects in my report and then trying to do the math on the private investment, and I think I said it was, $90,000 to $100,000 we're giving out. When you look at the overall projects that it supports, it's more like, 6 to 1.
6 to
Just
1.
in those 4 recent
Right.
ones, and by the time you factor in, permit fees and assessed value increases and all of that, there are exponential increases well beyond the limited investment we put into it. So, but in those recent examples, it's about 6 to 1.
Yeah, and you also mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, that the current committee is looking at some of the language in there to be as tight as possible, because there's been a couple of questions about specific features of proposals that have been submitted.
There have been a couple of problems, not real big problems, but we've had projects that have lingered for a long time. We want to eliminate that so the money can go back into the pot, and we're tightening up some of the criteria on the types of projects that we'll reimburse for. So the EDIC looked at just a draft at their last meeting. They're going to look at it one more time, and if they think it's okay, we'll bring it back to council, and I'll go through all of those changes. I mean, it's not a dramatic change to the program. It's really fine-tuning some of the language so that, when people ask whether my project qualifies, I can tell them very specifically, rather than say it's up to the commission to decide, this will be the criteria that we'll use from here on out. So the program's been in place for almost 10 years now, so it's time to take a look at it and dust it off a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I know the subcommittee has done it, and in fact, a couple of years I sat on it when I was at EAC. They do terrific work there. So,
Yeah.
Any other questions for Peter on either of these 2 grant approvals and the agreement with Jeff? Thank you, Peter. Seeing none, we have a motion and a second in front of us. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move into our regular business. Agenda item 3A.
Motion to authorize the transfer of fiscal year 2013-14 unexpected appropriations between departments and funds as listed below. First, balancing transfers between departments from town council to town manager, $4,476. From MDC to town attorney, $102,512. From insurance to town attorney, $27,834. From town clerk to town attorney, $2,934. From tax assessor to tax collector, $2,280. From fire suppression to fire marshal, $468. From police department to townwide radio, $29,845. From fire suppression to emergency medical services, $3,870. From building to engineering, $3,473. From contingency to physical services, $239,524. From debt services to physical services, $142,696. Then requested transfers from Park and Rec to Nature Center, $4,100. From Planning and Economic Development to Capital Improvement Reserve, $13,500. From Retiree Reserve to Compensated Absences, $65,000. From Police to CNEF, $63,000. From Police to Radio Reserve, $50,000. From Fire Suppression to Radio Reserve, $34,000. From Data Services to Technology Reserve, $50,000. From Library to Library Compensated Reserve, $3,819. From Town Council to Street Improvement Fund, $5,151. From Debt Services to Street Improvement Fund,
I think it should be data. Data
Data
services. Data
sorry,
services.
Data Services to Street Improvement Fund, $43,093. From Town Clerk to Street Improvement Fund, $15,696. From elections to street improvement fund, $42,906. From probate to street improvement fund, $213. From treasurer to street improvement fund, $601. From finance to street improvement fund, $4,273. From tax assessor to street improvement fund, $1,264. From central office services to street improvement fund, $1,977. From planning and development to street improvement fund, $2,146. From building to street improvement fund, $31,663. From police to street improvement fund, $27. From fire suppression to street improvement fund, $1,046. From emergency medical services to street improvement fund, $4,287. From engineering to street improvement fund, $1,000. From social and youth services to street improvement fund, $16,762. From park and rec to street improvement fund, $24,789. From contingency to street improvement fund, $476. And from insurance to street improvement fund, $1,136.
Second.
Thank you. You okay, Tom?
I'm fine.
Nice job.
Well done. Can you read that third one again?
Mr.
From the
Mayor,
top of the bottom.
I think he meant to say unexpended appropriations in the motion and not unexpected.
Right.
Okay.
Just a clarification. Thank you, Jerry. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What you're seeing this evening is, as Councilmember Martino read to you, are two different types of transfers. The first were the balancing transfers between departments, which are results of operations. And the big issue, or the big transfer, is unexpectedly, or not unexpectedly, physical services. The severe winter caused significant depletion of their resources over the year in terms of plow or snow plowing and salt purchases. So the big transfer is there, of course. Then you move on to the requested transfers. And as we looked at these last year, we looked at, can we use some of these unexpended funds to pay for things that we would otherwise not do, or in the instance of the police department, can we just buy their vehicles outright rather than lease them? So you see some of those transfers in there. And then the big department, of course, is street improvement fund. We kind of accumulated the leftover remnants in various departments and put it towards more paving, which is always a need in any community. So I think you're seeing that. We still have a lapsing balance in the general fund of about $10,000. And as Councilmember Kotkin said, the results of operations on the revenue side produced more revenue than expected. So even with these transfers, we're seeing an increase in the overall fund balance from a projected 9.8% to 10.7%. So all in all, a good story. We're going to be able to do more things, lower our long-term costs, and still provide that strong financial picture that Councilmember Kotkin talked about from the S&P report.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. And, I'm sure there are some questions, but if there's anything we want to emphasize, that I think, obviously, as Jeff Kotkin indicated earlier, several of the variables that the town continues to see happen, not only in terms of revenue collection that has been continuing to impress us with the number being more than projected, and we even, I believe, raised the number that we expected during the budget season. We're still exceeding that, which is very good news, and I think reflects the work of the staff, obviously, in the tax collection area. And we also, Jeff, I think, went over it quickly, but I think it bears note that the additional expenditures for this winter are being accommodated without tapping into any of the reserve funds. It's being done as a result of those additional revenues, which I think is also good news. And just to emphasize, I think, a point that Jeff just made about our road fund, we are continuing to recognize that the work that's done on the roads now in terms of efficiency, while everybody's up and running and doing additional work within this budget season, is exponentially beneficial because equipment doesn't have to be reset up. So this transfer that most of it went to road work, it just gives us, I think, additional efficiency during a time that we're obviously trying to catch up from some very tough road conditions that reflect what we've seen in terms of the climate, particularly this past winter. So it's good news. I think emphasizing that it's not a flurry of spending, but a very good fiscal planning that will help alleviate some of the pressure when some of that might not be there a year or two from now. So it's good stuff. Jerry?
Yeah, can you, somebody explain a little bit why the town attorney's account or department was so far off? Looks like we transferred $131,000 to them. Do we have any idea why?
Yes, we had several contracts not union contracts. Of course, we had some personnel issues with some employees that were let go. We had to resolve those, or in the resolution process with those. We had the radio contract negotiations, which took resources. We have charter revision, which consumes some resources. So you're seeing a host of smaller items that accumulate to higher cost.
Okay.
Jeff, just a follow-up to that. Our total budget for town attorney was around 100,
Yes.
so we roughly went twice on that. And that's during the fiscal year up through June 30th, right?
June 30.
Yeah, okay.
And that include the police settlement as well.
Yep, that was in there. Okay,
That was in there.
very good. Other
Or the
questions?
Retiree, I should say, the retiree settlement.
Retiree issue,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was in there.
Jeff?
So just to sum up on the paving, if we take the $1.5 million that we've budgeted this year between state and local, and we add the $300,000 that we allocated for the High Crest, and we've just put about a couple $100,000 more in, Jeff. So this fiscal year, we're going to be spending somewhere around $2 million
Correct.
on paving, including High Crest.
Yeah.
So compared to several years ago, where we were like at 850 or so,
Something
I
like
think
that.
probably 3, 4, or 5 years ago, we were at 850. So it's a commitment to improve the roads and lots in town. And now I guess we've addressed the two worst school lots that we have, the two elementary schools. Is that a fair statement?
Mike? Webb and Highcrest were the two most in need school lots?
Okay. And then also, I think we've got Mill Woods coming
Yes,
through
that's a steep grant.
That's a steep grant. And is that going to be done this fall? This is going to be done this fall as well. So I guess I didn't even include that. So there's actually a lot more that's going to be done. I mean, we've got a lot of work to do in town, but this is a great start. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second in front of us with regard to transfers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for that. Okay, we have item 3B, which was added to the agenda.
Motion to authorize the transfer of $67,198.99 from the fiscal year 2013-14 unexpended education appropriation to the Board of Educational Capital and Non-Recurring Expense Non-Lapsing Account for the replacement of burners at Hamner Elementary School.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. A couple years ago, the town council set up a CNEF, or Capital Non-Recurring Fund, account for the Board of Ed according to state statutes, which would allow them to reserve up to 1% of their total budget in a fund for capital improvements. The Board of Education, through this year's budget process, requested the ability to put about $67,000 into that fund and not include that cost in their proposed 2015 budget to do some burner replacement work at Hamner Elementary. And that was something the council and the board discussed at the time and found acceptable at the time. And this transfer would make that happen.
Questions about that? Jeff?
Couple things. Do we know, Jeff, if the work's going to get done before the winter?
I don't know.
Okay. We had talked about that a little during the budget. You don't know? Okay. Maybe you could just circle back and
Sure.
get back to us, because we had talked during the budget period, we had said we had hoped that they would do the work before the heat came on in Hanmer, because there was a fairly dire situation that was outlined to us during the budget. And based on the memo Do I understand that the board's returning beyond the 67, they're returning $50,000?
That's the message I got from Mike O'Neill, that they are lapsing up to $50,000.
Okay. Well, can't remember the last time that happened. Good, okay.
Good.
Yes,
Good news.
that's good. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and second in front of us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you. Thanks for getting that to us, Jeff. Okay. 4A, bids.
Motion to approve the value engineering change order reduction in the amount of $55,518 to the Ferguson Electrical Company contract.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As part of our VE process, Ferguson Electrical has brought in $55,000, $518 of their reductions, recommended by O&G and approved through the Building Committee. Mr. Turner's here to answer any questions you may have, but the description of the change order is included in the packet in the items that were accepted by the Building Committee.
Questions for Mike from the council?
There'll be more forthcoming, and you may see multiples and different vendors, but this is what we have so far.
Seeing no questions, we have a motion and second in front of us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you. We have a resolution for introduction, 5A. I think that's just
No
public,
action.
right? So there's no motion involved with that. So that's been introduced for the public's awareness. And finally, we have the minutes. Regular scheduled meeting of August 18th. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any changes, deletions, questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Finally, public comment. Any other members of the community wishing to speak again this evening? Mr. Young?
Good evening again, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. Here we go again, filling out applications for more money from the bankrupt state of Connecticut. Someone has to pay for this money somewhere. I don't know who, your grandchildren, whoever. But you folks probably never will, and I won't either. Maybe that's why we continue to borrow and ask for more money from an organization that has to borrow even for operating expenses. I don't know if you call this responsible requests or irresponsible requests, Mayor. But you keep asking, and all the towns keep asking. And that's why not one of you can ever talk about the reckless borrowing that goes on up there, because you're all part of it. All of you. You keep asking the group that's in trouble for money constantly. And every town across this state does the same thing. It's terrible the way it works. And the money that this state has owed, nobody even knows anymore. I recall several years ago when we were able to get this information, but trying to get some of that information now becomes more difficult to find out what do we really owe. But we have to wait until the current regime is driven out of Hartford and we get a new regime up there, and maybe that's when the books will open up. And that's when we'll find out how much damage was really done over the last few years by the current governor and his team. And as I said in the past and earlier today from here, and the net jobs have been pitiful in the state of Connecticut. We can say government up in Hartford has done very well, but private and elsewhere is hurting very badly. And the people who are looking for jobs must be terrible on them as well. And, to feed their families, to take care of their own lifestyles, what little they may have, has to be quite difficult. But here, we keep asking the bankrupt group up in Hartford for more money. It's like that $10 million that was acquired, I should say, for the high school, that extra $10 million. Where do you think that came from? That was more borrowed money. And while that money was being allocated to us, oodles and oodles of more money was being doled out to other communities across the state. And it's just a ripple effect of damage that is going to come back and bite all of us. Well, I'm going to get bit, just like you are, but you're the ones who have caused a problem. We have, I've been following the Charter Revision Commission. Not that I attended every meeting. I've missed a few. But I've tried to attend and put my 2 cents up. And I don't really see anything coming out of our charter revision, which is probably exactly what you folks want. There'll be I don't believe that there was only but 1 or 2 things that were extremely minor so far that they even thought they would consider pursuing. So I hope when that comes to vote, and it does have to come to vote, I hope the citizens vote it down and send them back to do a real job. We have ethics problems over the past. They're not going to fix those ethics problems. They blame it on the state of Connecticut. We have people that were in charge of taking care of retirements, payments for employees that were retired for, I think it was their medical or whatever, I don't recall what it was, but it was a lot of money. And now you're trying to catch up year after year with millions of dollars from current taxpayer collections to make up for all that damage that was done. But nobody pays a price for that in government, in here. We've had the Motorola lawsuit that I read in the paper not long ago that you settled. And what'd you get? $40-some thousand credit? Credit? Not even a check? Credit? And how many hundreds of thousands of dollars have you spent? I would hope to see that soon on the website, advertised by the town of Wethersfield, what that cost us, or unless I have to do an FOI. But, we'll never know unless we ask, what did it cost us? And let's think about this. This was a project, a lawsuit that went on for how many years? 8 years? It started from the beginning. We've only had the old system for 11 years now. So if it went on for 7 or 8 or 9 years with lawyers and special professionals that you bring in for testimonies and all of this kind of stuff and the cost. Look, the ethics thing cost $634,000, and that was only a matter of a short year. What the heck did Motorola cost us that went on for 6, 7, 8 years? Then you had the police problem. And I don't remember all the details of that either, where some retirees were having problems and they ended up winning. It seems that when we bring our lawyers in to handle the case, such as Motorola, and we only end up after all those years getting a 42, 44, I don't recall what the credit was, and yet we spent oodles of money. What is the value of those lawyers that you hired? Would anybody off the street hire those people? Hell no. Only a town would hire them. Nobody with their own personal interest would hire those attorneys. They're worthless. And normally an attorney would tell you what your chances are to win or lose. And give you an idea of how much to spend, but with a town, it doesn't matter. Deep pockets. And there's a number of other issues that I probably could go on to, but, I better change the subject. But here again, tonight, you talked about asphalt, putting $2 million worth of road work in. And if I recall correctly, probably 2 meetings ago, and I was at that meeting, you had a $25,000 expenditure that you were voting on for sealing roads, sealing that crack. We shouldn't have to pay for that. You should be bringing back that contractor, whoever did the job, and have them take care of it. If he did a good job, we wouldn't have it. But again, the town has deep pockets. And unfortunately, I don't see us having much success with our Charter Revision Commission. And all we have to do is go and vote no when you have it up for election, because I think it's terrible. Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Anyone else wishing to speak this evening? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Paul,
Yes,
quick,
Jeff,
we probably should have mentioned it earlier, but we've gotten a note from the town manager and police department that major repaving project on Wells Road is going to begin on Monday. So maybe for those who are watching, it might be good to remind them, given that some of it's going to be during the day and some of it's going to be overnight, right?
Right, most of it near the schools will be overnight. We're keeping that away from the daytime traffic.
So it starts Monday, and milling and repaving going on for 2 weeks on one of our major thoroughfares.
Yes.
So people are going to have to be patient. I mean, it's needed, but they're going to have to be patient over those 2 weeks.
Right, right.
Thank you, Jeff, for mentioning that. Benefit of the public. Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.